Did you know that Ferrari went from being irrelevant in low-speed circuits to touch the pole and get on the podium in Monaco? What made this technical miracle possible in just 1 week? Today we reveal the mystery behind the SF25 and why this change could rewrite the future of the season. The story of the Ferrari Renaissance in Monaco cannot be understood without immersing himself first in the gloomy content that surrounded the team before reaching the Principality. The start of the 2025 season for the Scuderia had been, at best, disappointing. In Miami, a circuit that combined high-speed sections with slow areas, Ferrari exhibited all their shortcomings. Both pilots, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, were out of the Q3, a devastating blow for a team with aspirations to the title. In the race, the rhythm was inconstant, with a lack of traction and poor tire management, which led to a marginal score and a loss of technical and mood confidence within the team. The situation worsened in Imola, a track that, although traditionally favors well-balanced cars, exposed the vulnerability of the SF25 in low and medium speed curves. Again, the classification was a disaster. Early elimination for both pilots and a weekend where Ferrari seemed to have lost course. The engineers did not find answers, the simulations in the factory did not match the real behavior of the car on the track, and the frustration seized the mechanics and technicians. The technical analysis meetings after each race lengthened until dawn, without conclusive results. It was evident that the car had hidden talent, but they failed to unlock it. Lewis Hamilton, in his first season with Ferrari, was especially franco in his statements. He admitted not to feel comfortable with the SF25, a car that did not respond as he was accustomed since his time in Mercedes. The British even modified his braking style to approach that of Leclerc, releasing the accelerator earlier and keeping faster in curve, but not even those adjustments were enough to counteract the lack of stability of the car. Its adaptation was more complicated than expected, and the team began to notice the pressure of having a superstar that could not yet shine. For its part, Leclerc lived a different tension. It competed with the added pressure of being the technical reference of the team, the most experienced pilot within Ferrari, and the local idol that had never managed to win at home. To each interview, each training, each negative result, the pressure accumulated. He knew that Monaco was his chance, but everything indicated that car deficiencies would condemn him once more. Inside Maranello, the atmosphere was tense. The meetings between Fred Vasseur and the technical leaders, especially in the departments of aerodynamics and suspension, became increasingly frequent and intense. The concern was evident. The data analysis showed a substantial loss of aerodynamic efficiency in slow areas, a critical weakness that no improvement package had managed to solve. The car seemed to collapse aerodynamically as it passes through slow curves, losing rear stability and generating erratic behavior, unpredictable for pilots. As the Monaco Grand Prix approached, there were no signs of a clear improvement. Neither in simulations, nor in wind tunnel, nor in telemetry data. Even the technical team began to talk openly to use this weekend only as a test bank, assuming that the performance would be poor. The expectations inside and outside the garage were minimal. No one was waiting for a miracle. And yet, right in that climate of hopelessness, when everything pointed to a new failure, the decisions that would change everything began to gesture. A transformation without ads, without promises, without holders. A commitment that would soon completely rewrite Ferrari's narrative in 2025. The radical change that allowed Ferrari Renaissance in Monaco began with one of the most atypical and revealing decisions of the entire season. Temporarily abandoning the aerodynamic concept of the SF25 and reassembling the rear wing of the SF24, the car of the previous year. This piece, exactly the same as Charles Leclerc used to win in Monaco in 2024, was rescued and adapted to the demands of the new chassis. This choice reflected something very deep within the team, a tacit recognition that some of the SF25 solutions did not work as expected in certain scenarios, and that instead of persisting in an inefficient design, it was more strategic to recover a previously proven configuration. But this was not an isolated decision. The true turning point occurred with a revolution in the philosophy of suspension of the car. Ferrari left the conservative approach he had maintained for decades and opted for a pull-rod suspension architecture both in the front and rear of the vehicle. This type of suspension, previously adopted by teams such as Red Bull and McLaren, allows to reduce the center of gravity of the car and improve the reactivity of the chassis in inputs and curve outputs, especially in slow paths such as Monaco. Implementing it in both axes is not a simple modification. It implies redesigning the anchor points, readjusting the general geometry of the car and recalibrating the interaction between suspension, tires, and aerodynamics. It was a technical bet of great risk, but executed with surgical precision. To this approach was added a complete reconfiguration of the lateral aerodynamic package, where Ferrari introduced more aggressive deflectors in the barge boards and new cuts in the base of the car. These changes were not only destined to increase aerodynamic load, but to channel the airflow with greater efficiency towards the diffuser area. In a circuit like Monaco, where every centimeter of channeled air can make the difference between an impossible overtaking or a perfect return, this detail was crucial. The transformation also extended to traction control and brakes. Ferrari integrated a more progressive mapping in the delivery of torque in low-speed curves, allowing the car to be more predictable and controllable by accelerating in outputs as compromised as lows or rasgas. This electronic modification helped the pilots, especially Leclerc, to maintain stability without sacrificing speed in areas where the SF25 suffered from skidding or tensile losses. What was even more fascinating is that all this technical revolution was made without announcing large packages of previous updates. There were no pompous communications or press conferences that anticipate a substantial improvement. The transformation was internal, silent, and thorough. It was, in essence, a sample of technical humility. To understand that something does not work, look back, learn what did work, and apply that knowledge with intelligence. This change not only surprised Paddock, but also his own pilots. Charles Leclerc, who had declared before the weekend that they would arrive without great hope, saw himself leading practices, surpassing his own references and competing for pole. He defined it as a mystery, and was right. Ferrari's execution at the Monaco 2025 Grand Prix was not only impeccable, it was a resounding statement that the team had managed to decipher a competitiveness formula in historically hostile terrain. From the moment the lights of the traffic light went out, Charles Leclerc showed that he was not only ready to fight, but had under control a tool refined perfectly. His departure was clean, without errors, and his rhythm in the first laps made it clear that the performance shown in the practices was not an illusion. Each turn to the Monegasco layout confirmed that Ferrari had found a perfect balance between aerodynamic load, traction, and stability in the braking, the three pillars that define success in this urban circuit. Leclerc pressed Lando Norris from the second one. Despite having been surpassed by only 109 thousandths in the classification, he did not allow the McLaren pilot to escape. The Carrera del Monegasco rhythm was constant, without notable falls, and mastery the management of the tires, especially in the first stint, where it was essential to avoid graining without wasting time. Each lap, each braking in Saint Devote, every traction from the portiere, every step by the chicane of the port, were evidence of a car that finally responded to the pilot style that Leclerc had perfected for years. This was not a reactive performance, it was a strategic execution, calculated, based on data and mutual trust between pilot and engineers. For his part, Lewis Hamilton lived a career that represented a different narrative, but equally powerful. The British was seventh after a penalty that prevented him from starting later, but his comeback to fifth place was not only a product of his experience or ability, but also a clear sample that the SF25, with the improvements introduced, was finally a competitive car in traffic. In a route where to advance is almost impossible, Hamilton took every opportunity with surgical aggressiveness. His rhythm was as consistent as his partner's, and his strategic reading of the race knew when to keep, when to attack, when to press to cause errors was essential to close a result that in normal conditions would have seemed unattainable. The pit wall also played an impeccable role. Ferrari's strategic decisions were timed with millimeter precision, something that in other seasons would have been a source of teasing or criticism. This time there were no mistakes in the pits. There were no hesitation in radio communication. The team operated as a coordinated and precise unit, a reflection of what can only be achieved when there is technical clarity and conviction in the strategic direction. This level of execution is difficult to achieve and even more difficult to maintain, but in Monaco, Ferrari did it. And the impact goes far beyond the 28 points added in the Construction Championship. This result was not a blow of luck, but the validation of a series of technical and philosophical decisions that marked the beginning of a new stage for the Scuderia. Moving from irrelevance in Miami and Imola to being protagonists in the most technical circuit in the calendar is more than an improvement. It is an identity transformation. For the first time in a long time, Ferrari showed not only performance but technical flexibility, adaptability, and, above all, learning. What happened in Monaco was a tangible proof that the team can evolve within the season, correct the course, and compete against McLaren and Red Bull without resigning to the role of secondant. The meaning of this result goes beyond numbers. It is a statement to Paddock and the world of Formula One. Ferrari has not finished speaking this season. If they manage to extrapolate what they learned in Monaco to other technical circuits such as Hungary, Marina Bay, or even the new urban layout of Las Vegas, they could become a fearsome rival. This result in Monaco was not only a momentary relief for the Tifosi, but a spark that could light one of the most exciting seasons for Ferrari in the hybrid era. After years of frustration, strategic errors, and unfulfilled promises, the Scuderia has shown that it is able to adapt, innovate, and above all, respond with forcefulness when the pressure is at its maximum point. But the great unknown remains. Can Ferrari sustain this level of performance in other circuits? Or was Monaco a technical anomaly, a high point isolated in a season full of ups and downs? What is coming now will be key to deciphering that answer. Circuits such as Canada, Hungary, and Singapore will test not only the technical evolution of the SF25, but also the team's ability to maintain coherence in their strategic decisions, the quality of their updates, and the mental consistency of its pilots. It is not enough to shine once. In modern Formula One, the real challenge is to turn the spark into constant fire. And this is where you are seeing this analysis, you can make a difference. What do you think is the true roof of this Ferrari? Was Monaco a static effect or the beginning of a structural change within the team? Can Leclerc finally fight for the championship on equal terms with Verstappen and Norris? Is Hamilton, who, with his experience, guides the team to a new golden era? I want to read you. Leave your opinion below. You know what to do. Subscribe and activate notifications.